Hello everyone, this is a $30 module from AKK. This module should fit in any goggle that fits standard size modules. Before we get into the features, let's jump right to the good stuff, the reception. I did a little test. It's a completely unfair test, but it should be kind of fun. So in this unfair test, I don't have either side labeled, and we're going to do a little quiz, but we're first going to take a short look, and then we're going to do a little guess. We're going to have a little fun with this. So I've got two modules and two goggles. One is the rapid fire and one is the AKK diversity. And really what you should do right now is more for the quiz rather than the testing of this. Is just try to see if you can identify which one is which. And these aren't exactly in sync. You know, one is running in an older set of goggles and one is running in a newer set of goggles. The DVR should be about the same, but it turns out it's really not the same. So all things aren't even, but this should give us a pretty good idea. Here's the part where we pause. Now this is where you need to click that I in the top right hand corner of the video and then click, remember we're trying to guess which one's the AKK diversity. So select left if you think it's the screen on the left, select right if you think the AKK is on the right, and here we go into a tougher area and you should start to be able to pick out which one's which, and we bring in the labels as well. So were you right? Did you guess right? Did you already know in just that short little 40-second clip which one was which? Of course, DVRs, they're not very fair. So if you're new to FPV, the DVRs typically record more breakup than you see in the goggles, and I don't know why that is. Maybe somebody else can chime in and explain that a little bit better, but it's just kind of always been this way to where the DVR is always worse than your actual reception within the goggles. The goggle DVR seems to be very susceptible to drop frames if you have any sort of signal breakup, which makes synchronizing these sorts of videos pretty difficult. And you'll see as we get further and further on, even though the runtime in the bottom right hand corner of the screen is pretty close, it somehow gets off, probably some drop frames or some breakup or just the differences in DVR. At this point, I'm just going to fly around the yard. You get an idea. You know, it's a $30 receiver. We're not expecting the world. This is a budget receiver. This is something that you might have as a secondary receiver. And therefore, we don't do extensive testing on something that is relatively inexpensive. It might be important, but it's just inexpensive as compared to many of the other modules available on the market. I fly my typical circuits. I do my punch outs over the roof. The things that I do in my space. Now, if you're looking for a range test, I'm not your guy for that. I don't fly at great range. I do micros, and I fly in my backyard primarily. Every once in a while, I'll venture out to the front yard, although I do think I'm going to have to find a larger field to do some flights for a different quad that I have. And as we go around to the front of the house, you might think, how are you flying through that? And again, it's not as bad as the DVR makes it look, although it is pretty sketchy. I am wearing the goggles with the rapid fire module in them because I know that I can make it around the house and still see, so I don't hit anyone, or, you know, one of my kids doesn't come out of the house and all of a sudden I'm going to get myself in trouble or hurt one of my kids. So I am using the ones that I know I'll have the reception when I go around the front of the house. The AKK breaks up pretty good when we get around there, but it's doable. It's surprisingly doable because I've got other modules that I've tried over the years that I just couldn't do that. And I'm flying the TomoQuad's Chopstick CS3. Recently did a review on that. If you'd like to see more about this particular machine and you missed that video, I'll put a link in the video description to that review. That's quite enough of that. Let's head back to the desk and take a finer look. This is the typical view of our receiver, and right below where you see the megahertz right down here, that's where you can put your call sign, and we'll take a quick look at that feature within the settings here. But first, let's start with some of the basics. You press the button once and we can get into save channels, and then you can navigate up and down with these buttons. So if you want to get into save channels and you say, let's go ahead and select this channel, we know we want R1, and then we long press, and then we get this menu, and we can do save and delete or exit. We're going to go ahead and save it. So now, if you go to R1 on your quad, you can just go to your save menu and select that channel if you don't want to use the auto scan. All channels shows exactly that, so you can go into any of these places and you can select a different channel. And we've saved that channel now. If we wait 10 seconds, it automatically goes back to the main menu. Smart search, let me plug something in and we'll take a look at that. As you can see back here, I've got a little hoop plugged in. Let's go back into smart search. So it's locked on to E1 5705. And then when we go back to the main menu after a 3-second count that you saw there on screen, you can get the percentages between the two different antennas, which I don't have any on right at the moment. We also have the band scanner. So if you're spectating and you want to go to different channels to see who's out there flying, you could use this. There's probably 100 different reasons why you might want to use this, but this is available to you to use. Go into our settings. Let's go back here. You can hear that beep every time. We go into our warnings. This determines when the battery will beep at the signal strength. Sorry, I missed that here. So we got 25, we got 20, 35, and 50%, and none. That dictates when the battery will, or the buzzer will beep when your signal gets down to that low. You've also got auto lock. You can turn auto lock on, and then when you press the buttons, nothing will work. So it locks and unlocks the buttons. And then we've got a little dBm units here. You can change that to percent. You can go just those two settings. And this is where you go into your call sign, and then you would navigate through all these different little things. Let's see if we go backwards this way. Sorry about the beeping. That's got to be annoying. So if we just select a few things, then this would be our call sign. The limit on the call sign is 9 characters, so you can't go more than that. This under speed is how quickly it switches between your antennas. So if you want that high, high, low, and normal. So depending upon your flight or what you want, you may want to switch that between one of those or the other. We can reset all the settings obviously here, and we can do a calibration as well, which I won't go into the calibration, but basically you need to have a quad handy in order to do that. Now, it's not all puppy dogs and ice creams. For your $30, you do not get a cover. I do think if you print a cover, the one that comes designed for the True D 3.5 should work. The layout looks to be about the same. I actually tried to print one particular cover a couple times. The print file is set up in a way that I don't have enough time to test my printer and changing all the different settings to get a good one. That's one of the many things that makes me bad at this, doing reviews and printing stuff. My prints all turned into a ball on my printer when I came to them. They didn't actually print or stick to my plate, and they didn't have enough squish, and I can print other things just fine. It comes out pretty decent, but a cover, I tried 2 different covers, and I'll link them down in the video description below, that if you have one of these, you might want to use it. Or you could, if you were so inclined, if you have a True D 3.5 or one that's similar with these button layouts, you could just buy a cover for that, or if you've already got one, maybe hack it up in order to make it work. So for $30, we don't get a cover, unfortunately. It seems to me that the people that might be most interested in something this inexpensive are those that are getting started and on a budget. So your budget is limited, you can't go all out. Maybe you're buying secondhand goggles, or someone gave you a set of goggles to get started with, but they didn't come with a module, because maybe they had a rapid fire module in those goggles and they took them out when they upgraded. Now they've passed those goggles on. Or if you bought secondhand goggles, or I guess if you wanted a backup receiver, that's possible. I haven't had any of my receivers go bad, so maybe that's the most reliable thing in our hobby. But if you were desperate, maybe you're going on a trip and you just can't afford to have any downtime, maybe you were looking for an inexpensive backup, that would work just fine. There is no way to update it as far as a USB plug. Many of the newer video receivers are coming with the plug, so you can just plug them in and update the firmware. This is not set up that way. Give you a quick little tour around just to confirm that there is no USB plug that I'm missing. That's the buzzer right down there, the thing that does a little chirping. But so if there is the possibility of updating, it's going to be a little less than user-friendly. We're probably going to have to connect some sort of adapter to our PC that does have a USB port, and maybe connect to some pins or something of that nature. It's just not set up by nature to be updated. That's something that you should be aware of for your $30 is updating is either going to be a challenge or it's not going to happen at all. So there it is, the AKK Diversity Receiver. $29.99 on AKK's website. I'll put a link down in the description below. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.